It's this time in a woman's life. So when the wheels start to fall off, they get to the mid 40s and they have a couple of kids or they have one and they don't get back to the gym and they don't get back to doing their health and well-being, and they focus all of their attention outside of themselves, because that's typically what mothers tend to do, without understanding that they need to be the best version of themselves. They need to also care for themselves and their health and well-being. And what happens is they've had 3 kids. This could be over a 10-year span, maybe even longer, by the time they will get to that kind of mid-primary school age. And then all of a sudden, mum's gone, oh my God, I haven't been to the gym for I don't know how long. Or, oh my God, I put on 4 kilos with my first baby. I didn't lose it. And then I put on another 4 kilos with my second baby. I didn't lose that either. And then I put on another 4 with my third child. And now I'm 12 kilos heavier than I actually should be. I haven't been to the gym and I don't look after myself. I don't eat correctly. And then boom, they hit perimenopause and they're having all of these crazy effects from it, hormonal effects. Like the habits and changes that you make at pregnancy, where you're so focused on something other than yourself, you're highly motivated in this time. What you do at this period of your life can set you up for later.
Welcome to the Precision Total Health Podcast, your go-to resource for high-value, no-fluff episodes that give you the tools to optimize your health and perform at your best as a mission-driven female leader. I'm Lori Aikman, former college athlete, seasoned nurse practitioner, and founder of Precision Total Health, a concierge functional medicine practice. Let's get started. On the podcast today, we have Tammy Potter, host of the Pregnancy Process podcast. Tammy is a renowned pregnancy and postnatal specialist dedicated to guiding women through the transformative journey of motherhood. With over a decade of hands-on experience, Tammy has coached a diverse range of clients, from elite athletes to women facing pregnancy complications. Her mission is to move women away from generic one-size-fits-all workouts and provide personalized support for a smooth and fulfilling pregnancy and postpartum experience. Her expertise has earned her partnerships with Australia's leading healthcare providers, ensuring her clients receive comprehensive care. Welcome to the podcast today, Tammy.
Thank you so much. It's fantastic to be here.
And it's so fun to connect. You know, you and I are across the world from each other. I think of that sometimes, how fun that, you know, my mom always says that. My mom's in her 60s. She goes, we didn't have the internet. We didn't have things like this where you can learn from experts across the world. Today we have. So yeah. So I'd love to maybe just dive in. How did you get started working with pregnancy and postpartum women?
So it is a bit of a long journey. So in my previous life, I worked in fashion and I decided that I needed to make a change. Before actually making that change, I loved dressing because I worked in fashion, and I loved working with pregnant women because they always, you know, it's a time of so much change for women, and not everyone feels comfortable in their body at that stage. There's so many changes happening. Not everyone feels their best self when they're pregnant. Not everyone gets the glow fairies, you know, where they're this glowing pregnant goddess. And I always loved dressing women during pregnancy and having them walk out feeling amazing again. And then when I became a coach, a lot of my close friends were going through pregnancy, postnatal, they were trying to fall pregnant, and I really saw up close firsthand how much of an impact that had on their lives, their relationships, their friendships, their careers, and also their relationship with their own body. And that really inspired me. So when I became a coach, I always knew that I wanted to work in that space. However, it took me a couple of years to get to that, because I really wanted to make sure that I got my head around what it means to have someone's health and well-being in my hands. Because essentially when you're coaching people, you have their health and well-being in your hands. And I take that responsibility extremely seriously, and I always have. And when it comes to pregnancy and postnatal, even more so, because it is such a transformative time in a woman's life where you have the possibility, I guess, to really positively impact their lives further down the track. And so I really wanted to make sure that I had my head solidly in the game of coaching in terms of strength training, in terms of conditioning, in terms of overall well-being. So it took me a couple of years to specialize. And then I've always been very grateful at how much help I received from people that were already in that area, also the coaches that I was working with and other specialists in this area like physios in my journey. So I've been very lucky. Obviously, I've worked very hard. I've done pretty much every single course that you can possibly imagine in the creation of the pregnancy process program itself. Have essentially created another course, I would say, that could easily coach other coaches. So in that respect, I think it's taken me a really long time to get to where I am today. And I think it's really easy to put pre and post specialist in someone's bio. It's a whole other story to actually being one. And in that journey of my own learning and my own, I guess, evolution into the coach I am today and the specialist that I am today, I have had, I guess, I've had the, what would you call it? I've been so lucky, I suppose, to coach hundreds of women through this process and connect with hundreds of women and be hands-on and get a very clear understanding of the challenges, the joys, the anxieties, the all shades of experience that women go through, from the people that have had, very terrible birth injuries, people that are suffering from pregnancy complications, from gestational diabetes through to some more severe ones, abdominal separation, pelvic floor dysfunction. So you name it. I would say it's very difficult to find something that I haven't coached or helped a woman through. So I'm so lucky that I'm able to draw on that experience now. And obviously with the podcast, talking to all the amazing people that I talk to, I'm able to draw down on my experience connecting with them. And so I've been very fortunate, and it has been a bit of a journey because it spans close to 13 years, I think now. So yeah. And
Wonderful.
without ego and without, I guess, trying to be as, what's the word I'm looking for, humble as possible. It's rare to find coaches in the health and wellbeing industry that have been in the industry as long as I have, and then even more rare to find someone that's specialized in this area for as long as I have in that hands-on kind of capacity. So yeah, I'd like to think that the people that work with me are, reasonably lucky to have that experience.
I'm sure they are. Yes. Well, and I know I'm a mom of 3. So going through my own pregnancies, I mean, just even knowing what can I do when I'm pregnant? How can I exercise when I'm pregnant? I know my doctor, my OBGYN, wasn't really clear, just kind of take it easy. Don't push too much. I did have my first pregnancy was a miscarriage. And so that just kind of sets a little bit of fear. I don't think that it had anything to do with my exercise, but it still then affected how I approached exercise personally in my second pregnancy and, subsequent pregnancies. So I think having somebody who specializes is huge, because there is just not clear information about what you should or shouldn't be doing. And especially, I have an athletic background, so I was used to working out at maybe in a more intense level than is recommended during pregnancy. I mean, I know there's, you talk to really giving someone a personalized approach, right? And not these one size fits all. But what do you find when women come to work with you? Are a lot of women already exercising and just not sure how to carry that on into pregnancy, or are they maybe wanting to exercise now they got pregnant and want to make sure they stay as healthy? What do you find in the women that come to work with you?
I get everybody that I get all range. So I get people that are trying to conceive, because the reality is that the journey starts in preconception. Your preconception health and well-being does have a flow-on effect to your conception, which then has a flow-on effect to your pregnancy, which has a flow-on effect to your postnatal, which then has a flow-on effect to the perimenopausal and menopausal. So this section of a woman's life is probably the most important part. So, and I do work with the whole range. But
Mhm.
before I go into that, I actually want to say I'm really sorry to hear that your first pregnancy did end in a miscarriage. And absolutely, for anyone listening, I'd really like to clarify that exercise would, I very highly doubt that exercise would have played into the role of that. And I'm sorry that it impacted your ability to, I guess, engage in health and well-being throughout your subsequent pregnancies, because that's something that I see a lot, where someone's first pregnancy has sadly ended in a miscarriage. So then their subsequent pregnancies, there's so much anxiety around what can they do, what can't they do, and there's so much fear that they actually do just stop exercising altogether and do what you were saying, is that take it easy and maybe just walk. But the sad reality is that that's probably one of the worst things that you can do for yourself. So, but I understand why people would be like that, because there's so much misinformation out there and there's so much contradictory information out there. And you've got your healthcare providers, whoever they may be, giving one set of information. You can go online and get, oh my God, so many different types of education. And it's really hard to find someone that you can trust to take you through that has the experience, because it is such a fragile time. It really is a journey that you're on, and the person that guides you is super important. So you have to be really comfortable and confident that they're the right person for you, because it is such a personal, vulnerable time that is so transformative. So if you can do it correctly, it can really enhance how you go into motherhood.
Yeah. Well, I would imagine maybe even in the delivery process, we're focusing a lot on pregnancy, but so that's such a physical, act. Having your body being conditioned can only help you during delivery.
I actually just did a reasonably long social media post around how training during pregnancy can actually set you up for a better delivery. So when you think of it from a number of different perspectives, so you've got mobility, you've got strength, you've got endurance, you've got conditioning. So, and all of these things will help in various ways during your birth process. And you've got to think of that as, it's like it's a long marathon, it's not a sprint. So you need to have that cardiovascular endurance, so that kind of base level cardiovascular fitness that you can get from your low intensity cardiovascular work, whether it's swimming, cycling. I would prefer not walking, like, because I don't feel like that's just general. Getting on the cross trainer, going for a swim, going for a cycle, all those types of things. Then you've got your more interval or conditioning based cardiovascular that helps you in those more high intensity moments where you're pushing and your body's drawing down on a lot of energy reserves and oxygen and all that type of thing. Then of course you need strength and core work, so strength through your core, because absolutely 110% being able to connect to your abdominals throughout your pregnancy and maintain that connection has scientifically been proven to aid in the delivery process. Obviously there's a lot to that. You need to be able to push in a way that allows the opening through the pelvic floor while still using your abdominals and making sure that you're not bearing down. But being able to connect to and maintain the strength of your abdominals is so important during pregnancy. And then overall strength as well, like making sure that your legs are strong, that your glutes are strong, that your actual body is strong, because it's an athletic event. Birth is an athletic event. So if you get tired, if you get fatigued, if mum gets fatigued, if mum's getting tired, if her cardiovascular endurance isn't there, if she's not able to handle those really intense contractions and over a long period of time, then mum gets in distress, baby gets in distress, and things can I guess cascade from there. And that's it's totally been proven that strength and training and cardiovascular endurance and fitness during pregnancy actually leads to better outcomes in labor and delivery. You've got less C-section rates, you've got better vaginal delivery rates, you've got less complications, you've got less, interventions, medical interventions. So training during pregnancy will 100% give you a better birth outcome. And then also from a postpartum perspective as well, you're absolutely going to have a better postpartum period and feel better physically if you've trained in the correct way during pregnancy. And I think that is really key, in that being that it needs to be in the correct way. So you can sadly do some damage when training incorrectly during pregnancy, mostly to things like your pelvic floor and your abdominals. So the thing that I look at when it comes to training during pregnancy is, your baby's mostly going to be okay, unless you're really going outside of the, guidelines, and you're really pushing hard with the intensity. And I feel like mostly women don't push themselves to the limits during pregnancy unless there's some kind of unless they're an athlete that needs to do that, in which case 9 times out of 10, they're going to be very closely monitored by their team. So we can't look to athletes we can look to them as our inspiration, but we can't follow what they're doing. These guys are outliers. But 9 times out of 10, women will pull back when it comes to training during pregnancy because they want to make sure that they're okay and their babies are okay. And for women that aren't doing that and that aren't athletes and they are really pushing hard, I would actually look more to the psychological, emotional aspects of that and why they're doing that. But mostly women don't push to that degree. So unless you're in that very small percentage where I would look at that, the psychological reasons why you're pushing that hard, you want to make sure that when you are training during pregnancy, that baby's going to be okay. Right? You're really looking after yourself. You're looking after your pelvic floor and you're looking after your abdominals, because when it comes to postpartum repair and your postpartum period, the barriers and the roadblocks that you will most likely come up against in that period is issues with abdominal separation and issues with pelvic floor dysfunction. Now, whether that's hypertonic or hypotonic, so pelvic floor being too tight, pelvic floor being too weak. I've worked with women that have had complete levator avulsions, which is when the tendon actually tears off the pelvis itself. I've worked with women that have severe abdominal separation. You can literally put your hands straight down into their abdominals. But you can't fear this type of thing. You can't fear movement. You can't fear exercise during pregnancy. You really need to do it, but you need to find a guide that's going to help take you through it in a safe way. And when I say safe, what's safe for me is going to be really different to what's safe to someone else who is untrained, because we've got varying degrees of what's considered safe. And I think we almost need to change the language around safe exercise during pregnancy, because the reality is most exercise is safe. But it depends on the person that's doing it and how it's being performed. So someone who's very well trained and has squatted and deadlifted and has got a very athletic background, what's safe for them is going to be very different to a new person that's coming in. And of course, I've trained that whole spectrum of people that have never even been into the gym before and never lifted weights before, and they've fallen pregnant and they've gone, I'm going to have to lift a really heavy pram, and I'm actually like very weak and I don't have a lot of muscle, and I'm going to have to lift a heavy baby and think life's going to be really different. I should get to the gym, all the way through to strength athletes, track athletes, martial artists. So, and there's the whole spectrum in between. And it's not so much what's safe. It's like what's safe for that person.
Right. And I just, to echo your point of having somebody to coach you along and know what is tolerable for you, what is safe for you. I think even women, take away the pregnancy or postpartum part, I think that can be really key for women, especially if they didn't grow up playing sports or, aren't used to pushing their bodies physically. I've heard that. I'm not really sure. I remember a friend of mine saying, like, I don't know if this is like I'm sore, it hurts, a good sore, just discomfort, not necessarily pain, but even discomfort that can come with exercise and pushing your limits. I think if somebody doesn't have that athletic background, and hasn't done that before, it can be hard to know, is this good? Is this bad? Am I safe? So yeah, and then even more so during pregnancy or during that postpartum period. Yeah.
Absolutely, because sadly there is so much misinformation out there. You
Mhm.
can go to any corner and there's so many people out there that call themselves specialists. Sadly, that actually aren't, they might have had a baby themselves and all of a sudden, because that's their
Mhm.
experience, and that's where they coach from. So, I think being really, I guess, oh my God, I think being very strategic and
Mhm.
considered about who you look to and who you turn to for advice is very important during
Mhm.
pregnancy. If you look to someone, do some research on them. How long? Ask them questions. If you're looking to work with someone, ask them questions. How long have you been doing this? How many
Mhm.
pregnant women have you worked with? What's your experience? I think that's very important, especially in this day and age where anybody can do anything and say they're anything, if you know what I mean. And if you're not sure, I think a really good place to start is your local specialist women's health physio, especially if you want to work in person with someone. Go to your local women's health physio, pelvic health physio, and ask them, do you have any coaches that I can work with that you would recommend? Because let me tell you, if any good pregnancy or postnatal coach is going to work very closely with a specialist women's health physio. And if they are good physios, they would have done their due diligence to make sure that the person that they're recommending their clients to is going to be well qualified. I
That's
can
such
tell
great advice.
absolutely, because I mean, I'm very fortunate that I work with one of Australia's top specialist pelvic health physios, but it took me a long time to get to that place. And it took me multiple times to actually get to that level where they were like, okay, we think you're ready. So, that's what I mean.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. Unfortunately, yes, so you're so right of so many people can say, anyone can say anything on the internet now, but yeah, doing
I
your
mean,
due
we live in
diligence.
the era of fake news. You're from America. Like, you're the fake news capital of the world.
So true. Yes, so true. Yes. I find even just in my line of work, just there's so many functional coaches, right? I do functional health, and so many people can even order the types of labs and testing that I use with my patients. But same, I have 13 years of medical background and prescribe, it's like, okay, well, who are you working with? Vetting your source. So
Mm.
yeah. What about just one other question I wanted to ask you about was kind of the do you see any correlation? I recommend exercise a lot of times for anxiety, right? The data is clear that exercise can help to reduce anxiety. What do you see in relationship with your clients as far as like postpartum anxiety or postpartum depression? Do you see any association with like just better, mood, better anxiety, less anxiety or maybe less depression when they are somebody who has been active and worked with someone like yourself?
So you're talking about postpartum outcomes from people that exercise during pregnancy. From the top of my head, I'm pretty sure there's actually scientific data out there that people that do exercise during pregnancy are less likely to, because I think when it comes to postpartum and perinatal, let's just like put the umbrella term
Sure.
perinatal anxiety and depression, is that a lot of it actually starts during the pregnancy or even potentially beforehand, because from my belief, we all have within us our own unique set of challenges and life's journeys and things that we've been through. And pregnancy itself is a huge, you cannot even name a part of a woman's life that isn't changed by pregnancy. Every single aspect of it. You've got your career, you've got career changes, you've got changes within your friendships, because some people may not be that happy for you, or that you've had a baby, or like whatever the reason might be. You've got changes in your relationships, your family, with your body. You've now got a new person that is completely dependent on you. You may not have any time. So all of these things, if they're not addressed in that lead up, where, or even have that understanding that, hey, life is really going to change, and actually really think about what it is that's going to change and what that journey is going to look like. And are there some things coming up within me surrounding how I view motherhood, how I was mothered, potentially how I was parented, how I view motherhood, things in the actual relationship? Because obviously, yes, there's some hormonal shifts as well. But I think one of the key things that women can do in the transition to motherhood is actually work through some of that stuff. So going to see a psychologist, or, you know, someone that works with women's health in mental health, and actually trying to do some of that work, that preparatory work prior to pregnant, prior to having the baby, will actually be very helpful. So in terms of exercise, absolutely, exercise helps with all of that. But I think there's a little bit more underlying that women can do to prepare themselves for the changes that they're going to be facing. And I think when you get to that point in your life and you haven't prepared yourself mentally, because I find, especially with women who've maybe had a really quick conception or a very long conception, they don't really focus so much on what happens once they get home with this baby. And I think thinking about that during the pregnancy and having those conversations with yourself, with your partner, with a therapist, and really figuring out what life is actually going to be like on the other side is almost like, I know you can't prepare yourself because no one ever knows what it's going to be like, but there are certain aspects that you can do and things that you can work on. And a lot of it comes from your health and well-being. So whether it's working with a psychologist, a coach, a dietitian, looking at your nutrition, because when it comes to mental health, there's so many aspects of it. And you can't discredit one without the other. The time that you spend in the sunshine, your general lifestyle habits. Do you meditate? Do you exercise? Do you spend time getting natural light on your face? What's your nutrition like? What's your alcohol intake like? I mean, do you take recreational things as well? There's so many things that contribute to someone's mental health. And your pregnancy is probably the best time to work on overall health and lifestyle stuff, and your mental health is part of that. So in terms of health and well-being and making sure you have a better postpartum period that doesn't include the depression and the anxiety, or minimizes that experience as much as possible, you look at your health and well-being, your nutrition, your sleep habits, your interpersonal relationships, do you meditate, do you go to therapy, all of those kinds of things. I think so can you have a better postpartum period? Absolutely. But it's about overall health and well-being, and I think exercise is part of that.
I love that response. I mean, that's so great. Yes, that's the approach I take with my patients is, or even just from a functional perspective, somebody will talk about just hormones. And I'm like, well, it's never just hormones, right? There's so much more going on in your body, what's going on with your liver and your gut health, and, same. So I love this. So I'm just curious, you have a podcast as well, which is the pregnancy process as well, correct? I've just blanked on the name. Okay. What are these the kind of things that somebody can expect to hear on your podcast?
So the podcast is a bit of a passion project. So for me, because I feel like I personally do a lot of talking to camera. So a lot of my content, if you find me on Instagram or YouTube, wherever you might find me, is a lot of me talking to the camera. And one of my personal values is connection. And I felt like I wasn't getting a lot of that. Yes, I get connected with my clients and people in the comments and that type of thing, but I wasn't being fulfilled in that aspect of my life, in my professional life, with the online component. Does that make sense?
Sure.
I'm sorry, my answers are very long-winded, so you'll have to just So then I decided that I wanted to do the podcast and connect with other experts in this area to really give women a place to land that covers so many topics, because the pregnancy process isn't just about pregnancy. It's about preconception. It's about conception. It's about pregnancy. It's about postpartum. And like I said before, all of that stuff has so much potential to positively impact how we turn up later in life as women. Because if there are three significant shifts in a hormonal shifts in a woman's life, you've got your initial kind of big shift where you get your period and your cycle for the first time. Then you have pregnancy, and then you have perimenopause and menopause. And what you do in that gap in between is, can't stress enough how important it is, because it's this time in a woman's life where when the wheels start to fall off. You know, and I'm sure you probably deal with that in your coaching and what you do. It's that a lot of women, once they get to the kind of mid 40s and they've maybe had a couple of kids, and what happens is, like, they have a couple of kids, or they have one, and they don't get back to the gym, and they don't get back to doing their health and well-being, and they focus all of their attention outside of themselves, because that's typically what mothers tend to do, without understanding that they need to be the best version of themselves. They need to also care for themselves and their health and well-being. And what happens is that their kids might get back to, say, mid-primary school, and all of a sudden, they've had 3 kids, and all of they're now, this could be over a 10-year span, maybe even longer, by the time they will get to that kind of mid-primary school age. And then all of a sudden, mum's gone, oh my God, I haven't been to the gym for I don't know how long. Or, oh my God, I put on 4 kilos with my first baby. I didn't lose it. And then I put on another 4 kilos with my second baby. I didn't lose that either. And then I put on another 4 with my third child. And now I'm 12 kilos heavier than I actually should be. I haven't been to the gym, and I don't look after myself. I don't eat correct. And then boom, they hit perimenopause, and they're having all of these crazy effects from it, hormonal effects. You're like, yeah. So what you do, habits and changes that you make at pregnancy, where you're so focused on something other than yourself, you're highly motivated in this time. What you do at this period of your life can set you up for later. It can set you up for postnatal, if you know what I mean. So it's so important. I can't even stress how important it is.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. I can just echoing of my stage of life. My children are all under 4. My oldest will be 4 next month. Yeah. It's so not having, it's so easy to be like, there was a couple of years that went by and we're still doing it like this, right? I mean, it's not an exaggeration at all that when those habits aren't in place, then it just, time goes by so fast where, I'm gonna change, and then the change doesn't happen. And I think of too, just really modeling one of my big motivating factors was when I always tell the story. I'm like, I feel bad. Not that I don't care about my boys, but it was something about when I was pregnant with my daughter, when I found out I was having a girl. I have 2 boys and 1 girl. There was just something kind of motivating for me of I really thought, well, she's my daughter. She's going to kind of take on more characteristics, of mine. And just, I felt it was really important for me to really look at who I was and, what just ambitions and business and life and how, just the life I'm living in general, personally and health, professionally, looking at that and going, do I want to pass that on to do I want my daughter to see me living this way, or how do I want to model life for my daughter? Just kind of thinking, well, she would take on more, of more things like me, where the boys would probably take on more things that my husband does.
I think that's true, but in the same way, I think boys definitely look to their mums to, what type of partner they're going to have long term. And I think when it comes, obviously, we're going off on a bit of a tangent here, but I think that women really get to shape the type of men their sons become and how they treat women, and that gets modeled in the house. Yeah, I think that's very important. As women, we want to be treated a certain way by men, and as women, we have a responsibility to future generations of women to make sure that the sons that they're bringing up are being modeled to correctly in terms of how women get treated and how they don't get treated, and things that you say and don't say to them and all that type of things.
Oh, that's such a good point.
Yeah, we're looking after the future generation of women by making sure that the sons are being taught correctly.
Love that.
In the same way, it's like a full circle, right? The podcast, sorry, because I mentioned the podcast before and then I went off like me on a tangent. But the podcast does cover absolutely everything along that span. So preconception, conception, pregnancy, postpartum, and it covers everything from nutrition, it covers fertility, it covers IVF, it covers because it's such a expensive topic, and I haven't just pigeonholed myself to pregnancy. And even if I was, there's the mindset aspect of it, there's the nutrition aspect of it, there's the educational aspect of it, there's the training aspect of it. So you've got all these different pillars of health that make up your health and well-being on that trajectory. You've got specialist women's health physios, you've got information around C-section, acupuncture, Chinese Eastern medicine. We've got some parenting stuff in there. So it's really all-encompassing.
Definitely. Love it. Ah, that's wonderful. So definitely we'll put the link in the show notes, but definitely check out the Pregnancy Process podcast. I would say, if you're considering pregnancy, like you said, just trying to conceive or postpartum, anywhere along the line, check out that podcast. And then where it looks like on your link tree, so Linktree, the pregnancy process is the best place to go to check out all of your things. You've got your link to the podcast, YouTube channel, Instagram.
I think that's the easiest way to share all of my different links.
Yeah.
There's a few components to the business. So I've got a face-to-face component too, because I still work with clients face-to-face, the online component, the podcast, and then I've got my social media channels. So mostly Instagram and YouTube, where there's a lot of information around health and well-being, more specifically training during pregnancy. And again, I've tried to make that as educational as I can possibly make it, because I believe that it's not just about saying do this exercise, don't do this exercise. If people are like me, I want to know why. I want to get underneath the hood. I want to know, like, if someone's telling me to do something, I want to know why I'm meant to be doing that. And I want good reasons for it before I'm going to follow someone's sites or whatever. It's kind of like, okay, you're telling me to do this or not do this specifically. I want to know why. And I think during pregnancy, there's so much information that you need to know. It's not like it's not just do this, don't do this. It's like, actually, if you do this, this is the potential flow-on effects that you can have, which is why it's better for you to do this. Or it's so important to be doing this, or I want you to think about how this impacts this, because you've got so many systems that are all working together. You're not just having these individual kind of silos of things changing. It's entire systems that are interconnected, all changing at the same time. And you have to take that into consideration. You can't just think about the one aspect of it.
Love it. Love it. Now, what is the, you have the Preggy Training Crew private WhatsApp community, and there's an application link. So that might be something, if somebody isn't local to you, they could maybe check that out.
So that's part of my community. So I think community and connection during this transformative time is so important, because pregnancy loneliness is really a thing. Can be actually, weirdly, it's one of the times that people are meant to feel the most joy, apparently, but it's actually one of the times that people can feel the most lonely, where they've got all of these changes happening with them, which a lot of people don't see. There's the physical manifestation of that change, but there's a lot of internal change as well. And if you're someone that's very social and likes going out and having a few drinks and catching up with the girls, and then all of a sudden you're really tired and you don't want to go out and you can't drink, and all of a sudden your friends are a little bit like, oh, you're a bit boring now, aren't you? And then so, I mean, it can be. I'm not like, they can be like that. And all of a sudden the invitations start to dry up a little bit, or, you don't get invited to things because you are pregnant. Oh, that she won't come anyway, or, you don't have the energy to do the things that you would normally do at the times that you would normally do them, or go into the community environments that you're used to. And so it can be very lonely.
Right.
So that's why community and connection is a cornerstone of what I do. Peggy Training Crew private WhatsApp community.
Wonderful. Okay, so they can go ahead and click on that link and then apply. That's awesome. I can relate to that. I have friends, that are in the same stage of life, young moms, or moms with young kids. I always joke, I'm like, I'm not really a young mom. I'm 40, but I have young kids. But yeah, I have friends that don't have children, are still in the more dating, going out. And so yeah, it's just a different stage of life now, that versus motherhood. So wonderful. That's so smart to have that, and such a great blessing for, I'm sure, those people to be able to have that community.
Well, it's very important. I mean, I've spoken to women who, they are younger mums. They're in their late 20s. And these days, being in your late 20s and being a new mum or being pregnant, all your friends are off at the beach having a good time, and they're like, come down, and you're stuck at home breastfeeding. You can't leave the house, so that can be quite isolating for someone. And I think it's important to be able to share those kind of experiences and share them with other women going through similar stages.
Yeah, that's so nice. Wonderful. Well, go to Linktree /the pregnancy process. Again, we'll put that link in the show notes. And thank you so much, Tammy. This has been a wonderful episode. I'm just so thankful for the work that you're doing, because it is so, so needed.
Thank you so much. And obviously, if anyone needs help with this part of their life, feel free to go. There's so many resources across the pregnancy process, and you're always welcome to connect with me. So, feel free if you need a hand with this aspect of your life. I'm more than happy to help.
Wonderful. All right. Thanks, Tammy.
Thank you so much.